Nice. All right. So it's 7 o'clock.
Oh
Thanks.
yeah, 7 o'clock.
Thanks, Martin. Okay, so just well, I'll just ask you how you're doing today again. How are you?
I am sterling. I am very, very good. Back to, I guess, my near best.
You're your best. Nice.
Near best. Not quite my full best because, well, like we had a chat, right? I've actually been um, struggling a little over the past 2 weeks or so.
Mm.
Kind of had a bit of I suppose I had, like, in a way, I say it was a little bit of a kind of meltdown, right? But probably a bit of an aggressive way of saying it. But there was certainly kind of like the past 10 days have been a bit rough. I'm kind of coming out of the other side of it now. So, like, good habits and things like that, feeling a lot better.
Lovely to hear that. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. But before we start actually like sort of interviewing today's session, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? So I know who you are, what you do, but just for the audience, for the YouTube later on, just tell us, what you do, where you live, and who you are, essentially.
Ooh, you know what? That's the kind of elevator pitch that everybody needs that I've never actually thought about. Um, but my name's Martin, and I live in Leeds, in Rodley. I've lived in lots of different places, but I was actually born in Leeds, and I've decided to come back here for a bit. Enjoy the pandemic here. I am a Leeds fan, Leeds Rhinos, Leeds United football. I've got family in Leeds, so it seemed like a good place to be. And due to my story, I've become very, very passionate about men's mental health and men's development and men's work and everything kind of associated with that whole surviving to thriving mentality, particularly for men due to being a man and the really, really kind of quite terrifying and disturbing suicide rates that men, that's currently associated with being a man right now.
Absolutely. Okay, so you're the least man, and then Martin, I see that you have sort of really high tech recording facilities there, audio, and then the behind you as well. So why is that? What do you do? I mean, I know, but I just ask it if I don't.
Well, it's a strange thing because I've had my own business now for the past 4, 5, 6 years, something like that. I need to actually count it up, see when it was, but it was actually producing physical events. So, and these were conferences, trade shows, exhibitions. I've been doing it for like 15 years in human resources, marketing, IT. And so, like, I would love to say it's like weddings or parties or corporate events where you get like a box for a sports event or something. No, it's like IT and computers and stuff. But obviously, then COVID hit, the pandemic hit. All physical events were kind of blown out of the water. My entire kind of 15-year skill set was like, you can't do any of that anymore. So I kind of turned my spare room here into a little bit of a kind of a YouTube studio for live streaming, producing virtual events, doing interviews, podcasts, everything like that. And you know what? This setup isn't as probably as expensive as it looks. Just make the most of what you have. I've actually got some key lights in the corner that I actually made myself out of cardboard. Yeah.
That's really impressive. Oh, wow. Yeah,
Yeah, it's good fun.
yeah, you do. Okay. I'm not good at making stuff out of whatever, cardboard or whatever, but that looks lovely. And so, Marty, I'll just talk a little bit about, how we first sort of came across on LinkedIn. You kindly sort of, commented on my post. I think that's when I was talking about why I wanted to host this You Are Not Alone Summit, when I only had an idea, no actual plan. And we got to chat, and I saw your sort of journey, really special journey, where you went when you went to Bali and what happened there, and how that sort of transformed your sort of, journey afterwards and stuff. So would you be able to tell us a little bit about that? What you were doing around then? What did you experience and that, please?
Yeah, yeah. You know what? It's quite funny because I have, since I kind of finally dived into this kind of men's work, I've been on a healing journey myself ever since then. But as I've been kind of interviewing people, like so many of the stories have come from Bali, just completely accidentally. I didn't meet anybody there or anything like that. But there's this, like, Bali provides whatever kind of spiritual transformation that you're looking for. Bali provides. It may not exactly be in the way that you want it to be provided, but Bali definitely provides. Like in my case, I decided, so I was warring up two different kind of places to go. I was either going to go South America or Bali. And the idea was, I'd created my business producing these physical events. I designed this process where I actually didn't have to be at the event, and I could hire people to run the events for me. So I could just produce them from afar. I could produce them from anywhere. So I decided that, I didn't feel I belonged anywhere. So I decided to just go exploring. And thanks to movies like Eat, Pray, Love, I decided to eat, pray, love my way to happiness, and thought, oh, well, Bali did it for her. Let's see if it can do it for me. And I actually did the full, like, Southeast Asia circle. I did kind of Bali and Vietnam and Kuala Lumpur and Thailand and everything like that. But yeah, I spent most of my time in Bali, and it was kind of a bizarre experience because I got there and I was at this coffee shop, and there were it was kind of very much as you would imagine it, like very kind of yogi types around. And I was just sitting in this coffee shop, and the first kind of group came in, and I instantly judged them. I judged them for who they were. I judged them for the way that they were acting. Like, instantly, the moment they walked in, I'd character assassinated them completely. And like, what I didn't realize, this was a pattern, which I had to kind of unpack later. But that kind of resonated through this journey. So I struggled to kind of really connect with anybody, make any real friends. I made a couple of friends, but it still wasn't a very connected circumstance. And then I decided to book myself in to go to this place called the Rock Bar. And I am a heavy metal fan, but that's got nothing to do with the Rock Bar. It doesn't play rock music. It's actually a bar that's carved into the face of the cliff, where you watch a sunset. It's one of the best sunsets I've ever seen in my world. So here I was, looking at one of the best sunsets I've ever seen, completely depressed, utterly miserable, and completely alone. And so much so that I was taking photos of the sunset. And if I'd have thought ahead, I would have actually prepared a picture here, because I've got some like graphics to play with, but I would have prepared the picture to show you the exact picture that I sent back on Facebook, desperately trying to get some kind of attention. Because I had this thought ringing in my head that said, would anyone miss me if I didn't come back from here? And that, it's funny now kind of looking back on that particular circumstance and thinking, that wasn't the first time that thought had entered my head. That was the first time I allowed that thought to be there. When I actually think back, I can actually pinpoint so many times before that where a similar thought had entered my head, but I battered it away. I was like, no, that's silly. That's ridiculous. That's, don't be such a wimp, Martin. And that was the first time in Bali that I allowed it to enter my head. And we love this kind of idea of like hitting rock bottom and having a transformation. Unfortunately, we don't get that kind of instant gratification a lot with our stories. So this sat with me for kind of several months as I toured around Southeast Asia. It was Bali, Kuala Lumpur, Thailand, Vietnam, and I've forgotten, which is a good sign, isn't it? Right? It must have been a memorable trip. No, and it stuck with me throughout the entire journey. And then when I got back to, I was living on the Isle of Man at the time, which is where my mum is, where my brother is, and moved into a new apartment. And I remember just kind of sitting there, just thinking, like, I would give anything to not feel this way anymore. Which kind of brings me to point number one. And right, fingers crossed this works. Because this is, like, if I do this. I didn't want to do a PowerPoint, but I wanted to kind of like add a bit of production value. So the first point was surrender. And surrender gets a really, really, really bad rap because we think it's like giving in. We think it's like, and in a way it is, but it's not giving up. What surrender actually is you're laying down your weapons. You're laying down your arms. And that's not a particularly bad thing when you're talking about your own kind of mental health, because why are you carrying weapons in your own mental health? Why are you battling? Why are you fighting? Because the person you're fighting is yourself. So the first thing that I did with my journey is to lay down my arms, lay down my weapons and surrender. And what that meant was I was also laying down my biases. I was also laying down the fact that I needed to have the answers. The fact that I also laid down the resistance, which was such a crucial point, because up until then, when you believe that you've got the answers, you'll resist alternative ideas. You completely resist alternative ideas. And when I laid down that resistance, I started to invite new experiences, because I didn't have that preconceived judgment. I didn't have that bias going into them. And not every circumstance worked. Not everything I did made a difference. But one thing it did allow me to do was start to get curious, which is one of the most powerful things that you can ever do when exploring your own kind of experience and your own mental health, is getting curious about what stuff means, about what conditioning that you've had. Because curiosity, when you can kind of say, instead of saying, oh, that doesn't work for me, you say, how can I make that work for me? It completely changes the dynamic. And by the way, for anybody that is here watching, like, this is just, we haven't kind of really planned this too much, have we? So if you guys have got any questions at any point, if you guys want to talk about anything, if you want to kind of share parts of your story, we fully welcome and want any kind of interaction here. That's definitely my preference. So yeah, that was part one of the story.
Thank you, Martin. So when you say surrender and laying out all your weapons and biases and everything, could you give us a little bit of examples? What you mean by weapons and biases you had? You said you were a character assassinator, but yeah.
Oh, that was such, like, honestly, the list is massive. I've been able to unpack so much of it, but the list is huge. Like, loneliness was very much a kind of core for me. And I kind of recognize way back when. So I've been into personal development for a long time. And in my late 20s-ish, I went to, maybe it was a little later than that, I went to Date with Destiny by Tony Robbins. Incredible 6-day event. Absolutely amazing, like soul transforming event. And first day, I walk into this event and I see, 4,000 people all in this room. Well, it probably wasn't 4,000 yet, 4,000 at max capacity, maybe 1,000 at that time. So I walk in the room, and the first thing I do is I start to look at the other men in the room. Now, I'm a straight man, so I wasn't looking at them kind of like sexually. What I was actually looking at them was like a threat assessment. It was like, where am I in the pecking order? So I would look for threats. I would look for men that maybe carried themselves well, or they were good looking, or they looked like very outgoing and social. And I would avoid those characters because I was like, oh, that's not for me. And then I would find people that were like maybe where I considered myself and just underneath. So it would make me look good, right? In comparison. And there were two problems with that. Is number one, I'm judging every single other man that I, even if I've not actually interacted with them, just by looking at them, I'm judging every single other man. And then I'm also judging myself because I'm placing myself in a hierarchy. So if you ever wonder why I was lonely, it's because I was judging myself and every other person I ever came in contact with. So that's an example of some of the biases that I was kind of bringing to the equation.
That's really interesting, Martin, because I I think I do more or less the same, but I think for me, I don't only judge the same gender as me, only female. I do for anyone I come across. I quickly scan them and I just something, I don't know, judgmental un정 inside me just tells me that, oh, I like this person. I don't really, just let's not really get to chat with them any further. So I do the same. That's really interesting. Okay, so what happens once you've surrendered?
So once I'd surrendered, I started to kind of let's not use the word thrust, throw myself into new experiences. And one of them was, so I joined this LinkedIn training company, right, to work out how to use LinkedIn best and lead generation for my business and all that kind of thing. And every Wednesday they had this mindset call. This mindset call was designed around kind of imposter phenomenon and imposter syndrome. Side note, I think it was John, right? John's talk on imposter phenomenon the other day was amazing. Ironically, gave me imposter phenomenon. It was that good. If you've not seen it, go and check it out. It was so good. But that's what this topic was designed to kind of get you over your own imposter syndrome so you could produce content on LinkedIn. And I remember, I started turning up to this. I was like, no, my mindset's fine. Because I believed I could think my way out of any problem. That's another bias and judgment that I was bringing to the equation. And so I believed my mindset was absolutely spot on. I didn't need help with that. I was fine. So I never used to go. And then because I surrendered, I started to show up. I didn't talk much for the first few weeks, but then I remember, and I don't want to share this person's story because it's their story to tell, but there was another person in the group who was an older woman, and she was going through a circumstance that meant she was experiencing grief, shame, gratitude, all at the same time. And even though it wasn't necessarily specific towards LinkedIn, she was sharing her experience of what she was feeling right now. And what happened was the people that were in the group, they didn't judge her. They didn't they didn't run away, they didn't judge, and most importantly, they didn't fix. They just validated her experience and empathized with her. And I was like, oh, that's what happens when you open up. That's not what I expected. I thought she'd be told to shut up, or like, oh, this isn't the right environment for that type of thing, or should be judged, or whatever circumstance. Like I'd made up in my head that when you open up, these things happen, and that wasn't this experience. And her sharing her story, it was either the next week or the week after, I can't remember which, but her sharing her story gave me the courage to start sharing mine. So that came to point 2, was connection, was to connect to people. Because though there was that experience within that particular mindset call, there was actually several other mastermind sessions that I'd signed up to and wasn't going to any. All of a sudden I was going to all of them. And, when it comes to kind of things like networking, mastermind sessions, a lot of people have this kind of idea in their mind that it has to be kind of business related. There has to be an outcome. There has to be, if I'm going to invest an hour into this, I need to get a return on that investment of time that is tangible, that I can hold on to. But what I can guarantee is that a new friend will provide more value than any training, course, keynote speech ever will. So if you focus on friendship and connection, there's your ROI. And that's what I realized when I started to kind of like, again, get curious, start to get to know people, start to focus on friendships. And yeah, that was phase 2.
Thanks, Martin. The the lady who opened up about what she was going through in this sort of training session, that really sort of resonates with me. Sorry, because it's my own sort of experience, but I also attended I think it was a residential sort of training course by work. I was super lucky, and the sector wise, we all dressed up quite professionally, professionally, and we all looked professional. And then we were asked to draw our sort of life graph, ups and downs, and explain what it was. And Martin, it was very, very similar to what you just described, but probably a bit more emotional. I don't know. That actually we started crying. All the adults, and someone in their 50s and 60s and all others, we started crying when someone started talking about the death they've experienced, or different struggles they had. I was crying for them. And when I was talking about my own struggles, as some of it, other people are crying for me. And that really felt, as you said, like, oh, it sort of shook me a bit. Oh, showing up, opening up wasn't a bad thing. Actually, it connects us. It makes us all in it together. And that was really a great sort of feeling to have.
Yeah. There's something so special when there's that kind of mutual empathy, right? For the, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific shared experience, but shared empathy. It's one of the most intimate, connected experiences that you can have. And that's what ultimately, I'd spent 30 something years avoiding and missing. So no wonder I found myself lonely on a sunset, watching a sunset. I'm just going to have a sip of my. So I've never had coconut water before.
Oh, is it
It
coconut
was
water?
this. I'm not sponsored.
Is it
This,
PPL?
but like so I was recommended to me because I started running,
Yeah.
and this is a bit of a side story.
Mm,
I've started running again.
mm.
I've never had it. It was recommended.
Take your time, drink your coconut water as much as you want, and tell us how it
God,
tastes. Is it
that's
good?
that's horrible.
Oh no!
That's the worst.
Is it
Ugh.
actually? Oh no!
Yeah.
I'm
I'll
sorry.
force it down. I'll force it down. It'll be fine.
So you
But
talk.
apparently it's really good for recovery. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
great.
And so, after you've sort of, you're going through this connect phase, you talked about new friends, and sort of new experiences and connecting with people. So have you then got to know new friends, new people who shared the same
Oh yeah.
oh
Yeah. Like so many. I've started several kind of like mastermind groups became my thing for a while. Like in particular, like what would be the best way to describe it? So I just kind of started up mastermind groups out of nowhere. So I started to build it into my business. So I was running HR events. So I started up HR mastermind groups, and like one in particular. So like we keep having emails back and forth because I actually had to leave the group because they're in the US and the time of the mastermind is too late for me because I've been working on curing insomnia. So I decided to leave that group, but they keep emailing me and we keep having kind of interactions back and forth. We miss you, Mark. We miss you so much. And this started as a business focused professional mastermind and it's still going on. And like the level of friendship there is absolutely huge. So I have made so many connections. There's it kind of brings me to part 3, which is more than this, but like share. Like when you share your story, there's a level of authenticity to it because you're not putting on a front anymore. You've laid down the armor. You've taken off all of the masks, and there are many, particularly as men, we put on many masks. We start to take them off. And that's when authenticity comes through that allows that connection to build. And I know like I debate whether share or connection comes first, right? Do you share and then connect, or do you connect and then share? I've decided to do it this way round for a very kind of specific reason, in that who you share with is really important because and I might get a bit of a slap for this one, but sharing with people close to you is not the best idea because and that's the natural go-to. That's the normal natural go-to, is that we share with our close family, maybe our husband, our partner, our wife. I don't know why I said husband there. Like our parents, maybe brothers, sisters, and stuff like that. Now I'm quite lucky; I can actually share with my brother. But when you share with someone closest to you, they love you so much that they are desperate to see you out of that experience, whatever you're going through. They want to see you out of it as quickly as possible because they hate to see you in pain. But that means they enter fix mode, right? So that's when things like, you might hear phrases like man up, or you need to do this, or you just need to get through. You need to go meet people. You need to go do some exercise. You need to join a club. You need to do this. And without the validation and empathy side, It's just like, it's almost like saying, you're not good enough as you are, so you need to do these things to get better. But that's not out of fear or judgment. It's done actually because they love you so much. So the reason that I put connect before share is that strangers is actually, now that doesn't mean you walk up a stranger and tell them your story, but strangers are a great source. For example, like in the UK, we have Andy's Man Club. And I've never been to Andy's Man Club, but I know so many people that have. And they say it's amazing. Like when I moved from the Isle of Man to the UK, we were mid-pandemic, so I haven't been able to go in lockdown, but I will do as soon as I can. But those types of environments are brilliant. And that's why I put connect first, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does make sense. You talked a little bit about. Oh, I see that you really enjoy your coconut water.
Yes.
Oh, never mind that. So you talked a little bit about men up there, and that's what I hear from many of my male colleagues when I ask about their mental health. First thing, actually, almost universal response that I get from any male colleagues that I ask about their mental health is that they don't know what to say. They're like, my mental health, men's mental health. Uh, what do you want me to say? It's very, very common. And the second thing that I heard a lot was that the common sort of responses of man up, toughen up, that's the responses they get if they try to speak to their other close sort of male figures about their own issues. So is there any other advice you can give them? I mean, I know that you said that probably don't speak to your family members, but go elsewhere, talk to strangers rather than your family members who worry about you so much. But anything else you can say, like at all, if they want to speak to someone close to them, other male figures about their own struggles?
It's not as scary as it sounds. It really, really is not as scary as it sounds. So I'll tell you one experience. As I was kind of learning on who best to connect with, the first thing that I actually didn't open up about my experience in Bali in that first time, right? That first time that I shared, that I mentioned in this mastermind program, it was actually my experience with ED, erectile dysfunction. So erectile dysfunction. Yeah. So naturally, nobody talks about that. It happens to a lot of guys, but every single guy is silent about it. So that was actually kind of what the first time I opened up was around my experiences around that. And then I opened up around the mental health side. And I remember, like, as I'd kind of started in the journey about doing men's work and actually starting to interview people and thinking about a podcast and things like that, I used to go watch my brother play football every single weekend. He was the captain of the team. We'd go watch, and like I'd often just be talking to the substitutes on the sidelines. And there's this one guy called Flash, who was same age as I was, and he was asking me, you know, what I did, everything like that. And I told him about the events business. I said, but I'm trying to pivot into kind of men's work and men's mental health. And I told him about the experience with erectile dysfunction. He was like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Like he didn't know what to do with that information at all. Like he kind of panicked. And I learned, okay, so there are some environments where, you know, you don't share specific details. Knowing that the other person is ready to receive the information is quite important. But at the same time, 10 minutes later, Flash and I were just going back to our regular conversations. You know, there wasn't any lasting impact. There wasn't any. He hasn't kind of ignored me since then. He hasn't kind of gone around and said, "Oh my God, Martin's like," that didn't happen, right? So like the story that we create in our minds is the worst case scenario is probably not going to happen when you open up. But there's a key thing that happens on two sides of the coin. So whether you are the person who wants to share or the person that's kind of inviting someone to share, is that invitation is a really, really key piece, right? So often we might see things, particularly on social media. There's lots of kind of groups that will say, hey, if you need to chat, ping me, I'm here for you. And then nothing else. And that doesn't work, because that's like, oh, here's my number. When you're struggling, you can call me. And number one, it's like, don't wait till then, right? You don't have to wait till things are rock bottom before you connect. And number two is, just because you've thrown it out there once doesn't mean that it's just there forever. There's a brilliant story in the book Friend of a Friend by David Burkus, where he talks about this, one of his friends who was struggling, and another friend actually flew out to see him, and he said, hey, I'm actually going to be in town for a business conference for a few days. It'd be great to meet up. Are you free for dinner tonight? He said, no, I can't meet. Okay, no worries. Next day, hey, do you want to grab lunch? No, I can't meet. Third day, do you want to grab a coffee? And he brought him out and they started to talk about things. Now, this friend actually wasn't in town for a business conference at all. He went there specifically to talk to his friend. But he didn't push, he invited. And that's absolutely crucial if we are supporting anybody, is that we invite and keep inviting. We don't just throw it out there once. And it's actually probably best not to say, if you're struggling, call me. Say, hey, I'm doing this thing. Do you want to come and see it? Another instance, I've heard of a friend of mine that was actually going through grief, said that she actually had a friend that came to her and with a book. And instead of saying, go buy this book, it'll help, she actually came to her with the book, with notes, with like the bits to read. So all she had to do was open up the book and read the thing, right? And that's how it works. So either side, whether you're kind of the person wanting to share or the person kind of doing the supporting, that invitation is a really, really good identification point on whether it's a safe environment.
Oh, that's really helpful, Martin. So just for me personally and selfishly, I'm learning as well, because what I do, Martin, actually, I have a question for you. So what I do is that I'm very good at identifying. I'm sensitive, so I'm quite good at identifying if something's up with someone. So I asked them, let's just say you're my male friend or colleague. Then I say, Martin, is everything okay? And usually they say, yeah, everything's good. It was a bit rubbish, but I'm fine now. I don't stop. Tell me all about it. You want to talk about it? And then they go, no, go away. I don't want to talk about it. So that's what happens. So for let's just say women who don't know how to speak to their male friends or partners, colleagues, their family members, when they're worried about something with them, how can we invite them in a nice way that isn't really pushing?
This actually brings us into a nice full circle here. Share your story is the absolute best thing that you can do. The amount of times that I've been in an experience whether I've shared my story or someone else has shared their story, which has allowed me, given me permission, because that's what it does. It creates opportunity for other people to stick their hand up and say, yeah, me also. Me also. I've experienced with that.
That's
And that's why sharing your story is like, I've got this phrase: share your story and you change your world. Share your story and you change your world. And that is, if there was a crux to this whole discussion, it would be that. It would be that. And, you know, we kind of, one of the kind of reasons that I came up with this is, first of all, there's my experience, but also when I look at kind of workplaces. So I've been doing HR events for a long time, and well-being, wellness was a discussion across like for the entire duration. And when it came to kind of mental health and well-being, it was always this discussion where it's like, it's okay for you guys to talk about your mental health. This will be like the leader, right? It's okay for you guys to talk about your mental health. I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. Which is exactly the same attitude that I had right at the start when I was like, I don't need to go to those mindset calls. My mindset's fine. I'm a smart guy. I can think my way out of any problem. Right? But if that leader shares their story, they make the entire environment a safe place for other people to share theirs. So I love the fact that you're so connected and empathic in order to kind of be able to spot those. And it gives you an opportunity then for you to be able to kind of share your story authentically. So like if you for example say like, I'm having an amazing day, on top of the world. If it's true, great, but it doesn't necessarily invite that other person to then say, I'm really struggling. It's like,
Thanks,
it doesn't
Martin.
work that way.
Say again?
Say it doesn't work that way. So
okay, share your story and change your world.
Change your world.
Change
Yes.
your world.
Not change the world.
Change
your
world.
world.
Okay, so I will apply these techniques I learned from you to my husband from right after this session, and hopefully I wouldn't be sent away this time. All right, so I actually had a question that I got from one of my friends. So he asked, what are common signs to look out for to know your mental health is getting worse? Is there anything you can do? Any tips or tricks to get a quick boost in mood?
I would probably say, unfortunately, not. It's I think that there's almost like this fear as well of having a rock bottom. Which I think is this guy's alluding to a little bit, right? So how do I spot that my mental health is getting worse? So how can I give myself a boost to not hit that rock bottom? And I think it's important that we don't be afraid of our rock bottom, because when we look at the hero's journey, right, there's what's called the road of trials, which is basically your punishment, right? That's when you're just getting beaten up left, right, and center. But you can't have the transformation without the road of trials. There's a Jung quote which I'm going to butcher, but it's like if a tree is to reach to heaven, its roots must also reach to hell. Right? So if you want an epic transformation, you have to defeat the darkest demons. You have to face the darkest shadow. And that is your rock bottom. So I think it's really, really important we're not afraid of our rock bottoms. Like I had one 10 days ago. Not a rock bottom, but like a serious low point where I had a little bit of a kind of a breakdown and a meltdown. And that was a sign for me that I needed to make adjustments. I needed to make changes. something had slipped somewhere, something had fallen off somewhere, something wasn't working with the dynamic. Thankfully, I knew what the answers were at that point, right? It's connection, it's sharing, it's doing things like this. It's reaching out to friends, it's kind of taking a look at those positive habits, like looking at my environment, looking at my daily habits. What am I doing with myself? Am I taking enough fresh air? Am I sleeping well? So there are kind of a few pillars that are fairly obvious around around fresh air, sleep, good food, affirmations. But these aren't things that give you a mood boost. These are daily practices.
Thank you for that. So Martin, I have a question. So then when let's just say when we identify, oh, I've hit my rock bottom, oh, and then that sinking feeling just going down, down, down. How do we talk to ourselves? Because like if I think of men's mental health, any men I know, not many but a few, I think when they hit their rock bottom, they usually go down, sort of almost fall, drop to their sort of worst, place, and then almost vanish in that place for a few hours or days, and then sort of come back gradually. Is there anything to help themselves to sort of speed up the process, or we shouldn't really try to speed up the process or just to let it flow like this?
So if you're kind of experiencing that type of thing, so one of the kind of associations that we've got, which we probably need to kind of adjust here, is the fact that it has to be time related, right? That we have to speed up the process, right? And I think there are kind of a lot of associations here, because I think, and I may be just projecting a little bit here, but it's almost like, okay, so you're in this rock bottom place. I'm worried about you. I'm worried you might do things to harm yourself. So there's this feeling that we need to help them as quickly as possible so that they don't decide to do something drastic. Right? So, but I think kind of like the fear and judgment of itself, of that experience, is actually part of the problem in of itself. So instead of judging it as like, oh, I'm at my rock bottom, this is the worst I've ever been, the worst I've ever felt, there's opportunity there. There's huge opportunity there. Because that's often the transformation that people need in order to break away to step one, right? That idea of surrender. So many people actually need to hit that rock bottom before they surrender. Like, ideally, that's not the case. But I really don't think we should be afraid of that rock bottom. Keep inviting. We recognize those circumstances. Keep inviting them, whoever it is, to connect. If you're that individual, try and put yourself into those connections. But isolation is okay too. You know what? When I had a kind of a bit of a meltdown 10 days ago, and I isolated for 2 days. I didn't really want to talk to anybody because whenever I would talk to people, it'd be like, oh, so what are you going to do? It's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And that's kind of a little bit why we isolate, is we feel like we have to be somewhere else, right? We feel like we're not allowed to have our rock bottom because people are like, so what are you going to do? You need to do this. You need to go to bed. You need to read. You need to go out. You need to go for a walk. You need to do this. And it's like, I don't want to do any of those things. Stop trying to change me. So it's like, it almost feels like you're not allowed to be where you are right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not a man, but I have to say, I really don't like this, that they make me angry almost. All
Yeah.
of the solutions from others when I'm not in the mood for any of these. But yeah. And so the other thing is, Martin, I'm curious. So let's say that you talked about this example earlier about you talking to Flash and this football
Yeah.
Flash about ED, and then he went, oh, he didn't know how to respond.
Yeah.
So for any other men who's tuning in this through YouTube or tonight, if they hear this sort of thing, anything from another man, anything about their own mental health, physical health, anything at all, how can they respond to it?
Two of my favorite words. There might be a third one here, but I haven't fully validated the third one, which is actually ironically the first one in the process. But mirror, validate, and empathize is the trio. I'm not sure about the mirroring part. I'm not sure whether that's necessary. But validate and empathize, because we men are naturally good at empathy, and that's a little bit of a kind of a gender stereotype, but like to your point earlier as well, just a quick segue, because you said about how like you're not a man and this is men's mental health. I've done enough interviews now to know that like in terms of our well-being, there's virtually no difference between men and women in terms of our requirements for positive mental health. And this is outside of diagnosed illnesses, right? This is just purely on a kind of functional well-being standpoint. There's very little difference between men and women in terms of our needs, but it's actually how we operate within society, which is where there is a big chasm. So when I say that men aren't naturally good at kind of empathy, it's like, generally speaking, we are not conditioned in a way that means we have access to those level of skills, because that requires intimacy and levels of connection which are more in tune with women. And there's this idea that kind of when women connect together, they connect face to face. When men connect together, they connect side to side, often with a distraction like a sports match or something, right? And that actually happens from a very, very, very young age. I'm going off on a tangent here. This is, but it's really, really important. It actually starts at school level is when the differences start to separate. And bringing it back to the question, which I've completely forgotten what it was. What were we talking about?
Hang on, I was just focusing on what you were saying and I forgot my own question. Let me give you one.
Oh yes, what can we do to respond to people when they open up?
Yes, exactly. When they actually start opening up, and then you are not ready for any of that, and like rather than panicking, how can you respond to them? Thank you, Martin.
Yeah. It's a tough one, because particularly like if you've not invited it, you're not expecting it. And what that might trigger then is what I call mirror neurons. And this is why men particularly kind of like struggle with this, is it might trigger your own experiences with what they're sharing. So it's like if someone says that they're really stressed or depressed, it's like, oh, I'm not ready to face my own depression. Mirror neurons kick, because then I have to empathize and feel it myself, and I don't want to feel it. So that's when I'm going to distance and panic and things like that. So kind of being aware that that might come up if you haven't invited that type of information is important. But like curiosity is one of the most powerful things that we can have. Like it's, oh God, it's like literally one of my favorite things is curiosity. So like when you get curious to say, okay, I'm experiencing that, that's totally fine, because you're curious about it. It's almost like you've risen above it. And then you can activate on validation of their experience. it makes sense that you're feeling that way. And then empathize. I would imagine that leaves you feeling scared. Is that what you're feeling? So you're validating their experience, letting them know that it's okay for them to be exactly where they are right now. And then empathize, because that lets them know, I'm here with you. I'm here with you right now.
Thank you. So validate and emphasize with them. Emphasize is something that I can't pronounce ever. But anyway, emphasize.
As long as you can do it, we don't need to pronounce it.
Absolutely. So, Martin, thank you so much for this session tonight. I mean, not just the audience and then who will be watching it back on YouTube later on. I have actually benefited so much from this myself. So I know, oh, right on time, brilliant. Because I was just gonna ask. So Martin, actually, your surname is. I'm sorry about this joke. You must have got 100 times from school, but your surname is Fretwell, Martin Fretwell, and you are the CEO and founder of Don't Fret, and you have Don't Fret Guard social media channels. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah. So actually, when I was a kid, you know how like in sports teams you tend to get your surname becomes your name. Fretwell, left, Fretwell, go wide, or whatever it was. And then that got shortened to Fret. So for years upon years upon years, my nickname was Fret. And because this is about sharing my story of all of my kind of trials, tribulations, difficulties, challenges, experiences, I was actually originally kind of trying to call it mental health or some play on words like that. And my mum said, "Why not Don't Fret?" I was like, "Oh, it's genius!" So I've decided I try and, but unfortunately, like Don't Fret is also a guitar term, so I've had to put Don't Fret Guys to represent the men's health thing. So that's across the board. My favorite platform is LinkedIn, so you can find me there most of the time. I do have a free Facebook group as well, which is specifically designed for men, called Share Your Story, Helping Men Find Purpose, which is a free Facebook group. You just search that, Share Your Story, Helping Men Find Purpose. Come along, and the whole point is to kind of help you do exactly what I've done today, help guide you through sharing your story, because there's going to be nuggets within that will link to your purpose. Trust me, it's always there. And share your story, change your world.
Thank you, Martin. So this free Facebook group specifically for men only is you have to type in share your story, helping men find purpose.
Yes, yeah, because I don't think it's Zoom, so I couldn't do a link. I could probably put a link in the bottom of the YouTube thing, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna pop it in the YouTube description for the audience, and I'm sure my husband will be joining it shortly as well.
And on that note, because though this is for men, it's only because it's early stages. Because one thing that's really, really important is that I have interviewed so many men, like coaches, life coaches, psychotherapists, like so many different types of individuals. I remember talking to Dr. John Ogrodnichuk, who is a psychotherapist that specifically deals with men. He has a amazing website, and like that has like a mental health test for men. And he said most of his clients are still women. Men are still not opening up, right? And so many times he's actually working with the man through their wife, through their daughter, through their mother, through their sister, right? So a lot of the kind of men's work right now is actually going through the connected female, right? So like, I know this, I know the statistics are there, and I'm working on what that might mean. But right now, just for men.
Absolutely. One quick question before we wrap it up in a minute. So where do we watch your videos that you interview these men?
Well, I've just literally started releasing them. So I had them on a virtual summit. I've decided I'm just going to release them all on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis in both podcast format and video format on my YouTube channel, Don't Fret.
Don't fret. Okay, so any of you in the audience who want to rewatch Martin's video interviewing other men, just to subscribe Don't Fret on YouTube and join the free Facebook group, share your story, helping men find a purpose. Martin, thank you so much. And we will still be friends after this session, I hope.
1,000,000,000%. And I am not, I'm going to kind of throw you under the bus a little bit, but would love it if you happen to find your way into doing more of these summits. I think it could be maybe a twice yearly thing. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you threw me under the bus.
I did massively.
Thank you so much.
You can edit this bit out if you don't like it.
No, I leave it. I love it. So Martin, thank you so much. Yeah, you are just such an authentic, wonderful soul. I don't know what you think of you, but that's what I think of you.
Thank you.
And then thank you so much for the audience tuning in tonight and Tuesday night, and also we will upload this to YouTube after this tonight, so you can rewatch it and share with any of male partners, family members, siblings, friends, colleagues, or just watch yourself to understand men's mental health better. Don't forget to subscribe Don't Fret on YouTube and rewatch all Martin's interview sessions as well. So thank you everyone for tonight, and thank you so much, Martin, for this. Thank you. Would you mind just clicking the end for all? Because I made a post. Yes, please.
Meeting for all.
Yes, please.
Bye.
Bye.